Just as a reminder, if you would like to make a comment, please call 877-852-5247 or 888-788-0099 and enter the following meeting ID number, 974-6174-9412.
So we'll give this just another moment to see if anyone's calling in. I'll note that there were no e-comments received for the meeting. So no other communications.
Okay.
And there are no callers.
All right, thank you. So now on to regular business. This is agenda item DR 21-001, located at 212 Miller Avenue. The petitioner proposes to construct a 4 to 5 story, 8-unit residential building with units that vary in size from approximately 950 square feet to about 2,300 square feet. The base level is proposed to include parking garages for each unit. The next 3 floors will include residential units. The top level includes penthouse space for the top 2 residential units. The existing brick home on the property is proposed to be removed. Vehicular and pedestrian access to the building is proposed to be from Miller Road. The site is zone D2, which is downtown interface, and is in the Carytown Character Overlay District. Jeff, would you like to make a staff report first?
Dick, I think you summarized pretty much everything that I would say.
Okay.
As you had indicated, the building provides ground level parking. The next 3 floors would be residential, and there are 2 penthouse spaces above the 4th floor.
Okay, thank you. And I see Carl Huter, the project architect, and Tom Fitzsimmons, the developer, are here. So I would like to hand it over to you two and walk us through the project.
Okay, welcome. I don't do these often, so excuse me if I move too fast and things like that. 212 Miller is a platted lot in the city of Ann Arbor. It's standard plat size of 66 foot wide, 132 feet deep. As was noted, it's in the D2 zoning district, and that's why we're here today. The developer is proposing to put a 3-story building on the property. The property grade falls east to west about 6 feet on the street, and from the southeast corner to the northwest corner about 8 or 9 feet. And that is going to allow us to come in on the west side of the basement and have 8 garages, 1 for each of the 8 units that are being proposed, where the parking is double stacked in the garage. 2 of the garages enter directly by stairs into the first floor units above. The other 6 garages have elevators in them that allow people to go up to the middle first floor unit, the 3 second floor units, and the 2 third floor units. The 3rd floor has a mezzanine in it. There's not a penthouse, it's a mezzanine. So I want to get the language correct. So that's the floor plan. The base building size is 39 feet wide by 116 feet long. It sets back, the base building sets back 20 feet from the 309 North Ashley building directly to the east, which is 5 stories high. And directly to the west, it sets back 5 to 7 feet from that property line. And that lot directly to the west, which is on the corner, is the parking for the apartment building that's across the street on Miller.
May I interject real quickly? Is it possible, Carl, for you to share drawings in the meeting so anyone participating can actually see and you can point to what you're illustrating? Otherwise, we're all just using it. It's only verbal. It's a little hard to kind of follow.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I had a camera set up to do that, but it's not functioning. So I'm sorry.
Is it possible for Kristen to show the drawings from our packet? Kristen?
Yep, she's working on it, I think.
Oh, I'm just,
Okay.
Yes, I can pull up the design plan. Just here.
We can't get that phone on the Zoom.
No, because it only gives me the digits and I need the alpha also, right? I don't know how to do it.
Okay. Well, the iPhone that we're going to use for a camera just will not. We don't have enough information to bring it into the meeting. So.
I think Kristen's going to be able to pull them up here, Carol. Let's give her a second.
All right. I'll just keep going on. Okay, what floor plan, where do we want to go, folks?
Let's start with the site plan. I think that's one of the initial drawings.
Okay, this is the basement garage plan. You see the 66 by 132 foot property line, and the basement level parks right up against the east side of the property, and then it's about 19 feet off the west side of the property. There's a column line and the building wall above the west wall, which is at the top of your sheet. The west wall curves across that elevation. The next sheet, please.
Back
First
one
floor
more.
plan.
Oh, other direction, Kristen. There you go.
Okay, so this is the site plan. Up on the upper left-hand side is the access to the garage below. You see these are the first floor 3 units, and we have a landscaped entry courtyard where the main building wall is 20 feet from the property line, and the furthest elevator shaft closest to the property line is about 14 foot 4 inches away. You walk up to that level, or there's a barrier-free, a handicap ramp going up to that level, and it's landscaped. And from that level, you can enter each of the units. For the second and third floor, you enter a foyer, then either get in an elevator or go up the stairs to your unit on the second or third floor. The first floor units, 101 and 103, have exterior patios that will have a wood fence around them. And then we'll have plantings in the landscaped area. It'll have pavers. You see the front, we have stepped or terraced landscape areas going down to the sidewalk level. And let's go, second floor is three units, and the third floor is 2 units. And then there's a mezzanine level. The stairway continues up to that mezzanine level. All right, let's just stay here. So the exterior elevations, we have 3 basic materials. As we're looking at this drawing, the 3/4 of the front is made up of a rough textured brick. And we're working all with lighter colors here. I'm not using anything dark, except for the window frames will be a dark charcoal or graphite color. Then to the right, the stair and elevator shafts are going to be covered with a light or white Nichiwa panel product. And then as we go to the left, let's go down to the next elevation. Okay. On the east elevation, there's 3 planes of the rougher brick. Out in front of them is the smoother white Nichiwa product. Each of the entry roofs will have a copper or a Lexan clear roof over it. Those documents are included in your packet showing what they are. The upper mezzanine area, part of it is a clerestory and part of it is the mezzanine level. And that up there will be covered with the tops of those roofs, and that area there will be covered in metal, and that metal will go around as the coping around the roofs. Next elevation. The rear, the windows are fire rated. They have glass block on them, and the rear is mostly the rusticated brick. But now we're heading around to the west elevation. Just a second. Can you turn down the volume? Thank you. All right. Now we're heading around to the west elevation. Next drawing. Okay. And this is the curved wall plane. It's facing west. And right now we're looking at covering this with either a light gray thin brick or a light gray Nichiwa product, and not doing the metal. Below the 3 floors are the garage doors. The planning areas to your right, you see, and the foundation exposed will be sandblasted concrete. We're setting this up to have either 9 or 10 foot ceilings in the units, depending on what spaces they're in. The building has a height, I believe, a total height of around 48, 49 feet, including the mezzanine on the top. The stair towers that project up into the mezzanine level also hide the mechanical units from view. Next drawing. And there's a perspective sketch from the street. Do I have a camera? We do have a model. This is the existing building that's coming down. It's not a historic building. You can, the 309 building, the 5-story 309 building. This is looking from Main Street back down as we're dropping downhill. Next. These are all just neighborhood characters. There's existing residential houses that are either still being used for residential uses, converted to offices, and the neighborhood's transitioning. Keep going more. Sort of kitty corner across the street is a very large Ann Ashley parking structure, which will also provide additional parking for people coming to visit the site. Around the corner is a building I worked on 40 years ago. It's still there. And there's another residential tower. Keep going. This is the building, the Gray Line building on the corner. This is the old, across the street from the 309 Ashley building. Yeah. This is the apartment complex that has the parking lot across the street that's on the west side of 212 Miller. Okay, we have the iPhone in the meeting, but it's not letting us turn the camera on, so we're trying. This is down the hill, the Miller building. Right behind it is the Arbor Railroad track, which makes this long curve through the city of Ann Arbor, which the building that we're doing is sort of reflecting that curve facing the railroad. And then beyond that is a residential neighborhood. Next. Next. This is just character, a building in the neighborhood. Bill can talk. These are recently developed condominium buildings in the area. This one's sort of on the opposite corner of from where the 212 Miller building on that block. There's two, you're looking at 2 recently built condo buildings there. Next. And this building is now under construction. It's down where J.C. Beal used to be, or is, and Burt Forest Products at the end of the Kingsley Street. Next. And then we're just going over facade materials. The base of the building is going to be sandblasted concrete. Next. A rusticated brick in a light color on the south, east, and north elevations, and then on the west elevation, either a light colored gray brick or a larger light colored gray Nichiwa product. Next. And one of these Nichiwa products are what we're looking at. Next. At one time we were considering using metal on the building, but there was a lot of pushback on that. So next. We have black window frames, as the picture above shows. We'll have wood screens around the front and rear first floor patio spaces. Our front doors will be kind of like what you're seeing in 6 next. 7, either the copper roof over the doors or a polycarbonate and metal curved unit over the entry doors. And the balconies will be metal, as you see above, and the garage doors will be similar to the one below with window units in it. Okay.
They've added your phone as a participant, that it might be that you have to turn the audio on. Oh, there's the visual right now. It's looking at me.
Okay. So it looks like we have a model of we can go around the model if you want. You can see the top, the mezzanine area. This is the west elevation. There we go. This is the west elevation going around to the front of the building. A street view coming up into the courtyard and then down the courtyard. The west elevation, as you can see, has the curve on the front of the, this is really difficult. Showing the balconies. The curve on the front of the building on the west side is a 600-foot radius, which as a reference means that you have, if in 36 inches, the curve is about 3/32 of an inch. I think that's it.
I see Mr. Fitzsimmons is on. Do you have anything you would like to add before we go into comments, Tom?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just a couple final statements. One is the program for this building, or the initial design concept, was to build a pedestrian courtyard between sort of this building as it goes up above some of the parking and next to the building I'm currently developing at the corner at 309 North Ashley, to create as much separation between the two buildings as possible. So we got parking basically underground, a pedestrian courtyard above. We'll have plantings on the pedestrian courtyard between the two buildings. We've done a very similar sort of program at a development at 414 North Main, which I still call the old Greek church site. As well as 121 Kingsley West, where we have a 2-building program with parking underneath and a pedestrian courtyard above. And so while this is 2 separate developments, we're sort of mimicking that, again, to get separation, get some green space between the 2 buildings, and having the smaller building on the west side try and minimize any impact of shading on the existing building that we're doing. So that was really just my initial concept coming to this, and then obviously working with Carl, we've developed it from there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you both. Comments? Who would like to start us out?
I have a simple one. Carl, I'm not familiar with the Nichiwa product. I see what it looks like. What is it? Is it metal? Is it a composite? What is Nichiwa?
It's a composite. It's typically it's a panel that's 18 inches by 48 inches, a ½ inch or 5/8 of an inch thick. It has like a fused finish to the outside of it, and it's a composite. I don't know exactly what all the materials are inside of it, but it's on. Tom, correct me. It's on 309, right?
Correct. We used it on our 410 first project and at 309 North Ashley. It comes in a multitude of colors, finishes, anything from a high gloss metal look to a more subdued textured panel. It's a commercial based product. It's completely pre-finished, not anything that we finish on site. Again, we've been pretty happy with it, both on sourcing and the installers that we've used. And we like its flexibility, its color options. So yeah, that's what it is. Thanks.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions about the site.
Yep.
If we look at the basement plan, I was wondering what the, if any, transition or separation you have to the west. I know there's a parking lot there now. I know that you drive down into your garage level a little bit. So are you level with that, or are you above or below it?
No, there's about a 4-foot grade differential, and that'll be done with a unit concrete masonry stacked landscape wall.
Okay, and there's no screening requirements because, well, this is a residential use and that is apparently zoned the same as this one.
I believe they're both D2 zoned, yes, Gary.
Then on the first floor, I noticed that in your section, you show a drop from the 309 Ashley building to your plaza. Is that a retaining wall that 309 will build, and what will it look like from the residential plaza side?
So 309 has an existing concrete foundation wall there, and so we're going to strip that back and sandblast it as part, and so it's relevant with the other sandblasted walls we have on the site. So their foundation wall becomes the wall of that courtyard.
And it looks like it's 4 or 5 feet above the plaza.
No, we're coming up onto our courtyard plaza, and that's mitigating the height. Tom knows, he's intimately involved in 309, so it's I don't think it's 6 feet. I think it's more like 4 or 5 feet, correct?
What's the question?
The differential in grade from the 212 courtyard plaza level up to the first floor of 309.
Yeah. So the first floor at 309 is 813.
And we're at 810. So it's
and we're at 810, and that wall extends about a foot to a foot and a half above that 813. So 4 to 4.5 feet of wall, and then it also has a 2-foot railing on top of it, again from the 309 side, to bring it up for a railing code. So ultimately, if you're on the plaza at 212 Miller, you're going to be looking at a 4-foot plus wall with a small railing on top of that.
And what's the use directly on the 309 site? Is it just landscape between the 309 building and the wall, or is it the patios for the ground floor units?
Well, it's a mix. We have a stair tower that comes all the way out to the property line. We have an actual living unit that comes out to that wall in the rear, and we have a sidewalk coming up. It's actually a second egress exit off the front. Yeah, we will have living space essentially butting that wall and that railing for about half that distance. Hence in my view, the need for the courtyard, and we will be putting full-size trees and planters in that courtyard, as well as various other landscaping elements, which again we've done in 2 other courtyard type buildings in Ann Arbor.
And the berry-free ramp to your plaza will share that wall on one side, it looks like.
Well, yeah. So again, that wall for 309 is right on the property line, and we are abutting that at our parking level, and which would obviously then also, because we're building the pedestrian courtyard above that, would abut that. So the ramp would come up right next to that also, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
While we're on that, the outdoor space, I guess I'll follow on. I think, first of all, I think it's a very creative use of topography and space to get all of these things to fit and work together and provide some amenities outdoor and indoor. So I commend you on your creative approach to navigating all of that. A couple of questions I have are on the privacy screens and the patios. I can see obviously the one on the street side. I thought that you mentioned there were more in that terrace space. Can you clarify a little bit what other private kind of patio zones are being planned?
Okay, so there's the front one that you just mentioned, and then the rear unit at the rear of the courtyard, we're going to put a patio in there and have that screened with a wood screen. At each of the entries to the units, just outside the unit, we're going to have a planter that we hope the tenants use to put flowers in and stuff like that, so they kind of get, our house has the hollyhocks and their house has the delphiniums or something like that. So there's some connection between the unit owners and a small bit of landscaping out there. But the other 6 units on the second and third floor all have their balconies out to the outside.
Okay, so there's just 2 patios that are out at grade or at the courtyard grade.
That's
and
correct.
that's at the front of the building and the back of the building. The rest of that courtyard plaza, minus those planters, is kind of shared use
Yes.
for all of the residents, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I guess in general, I mean, the image that you shared for the patio enclosure is finished and refined. It just doesn't quite feel like a street side character. It feels like a barrier to the building in a way that doesn't feel very super friendly. I mean, I think when you have the refined and the quality materials that you're showing, it has a bit of a different presence, but a full height screen wall feels a little bit, I don't know, I guess I feel like it would be nice to have a space that wasn't quite so cordoned off and private, that had a little bit more of a transparency to the building than having a full height screen wall. I understand that residents would want a little bit more privacy that close to the street, but it does kind of present a different front to the building, and how it resolves with the window elevations is a bit awkward too. There's kind of almost to the top of those windows, and I understand looking from the street that angle is going to change a bit, but it feels a bit tacked on, I guess. So how can it feel more integrated and feel like a piece of the building that is connected to the plaza and also connected to the street in a little bit more of an integrated way?
John or Jeff, do you have anything?
I agree with Lori's comment about the screen wall, but overall, I think it's a nice looking building. It looks like a nice project. I have a question about the canopies over the entries. Are you saying it's going to be one or the other, or a combination of the two?
One or the other.
All right. Well, I like the idea of the standing seam metal versus the polycarbonate. And if that's the route that you go, that would be my choice. But if that's the route you go, I'd like to see maybe you increasing the pitch on those roofs over the doors, because at that low a slope, standing down at grade, you're really not going to see the material, and I think it's a welcome material to add sort of to this palette. So if I look at, for instance, your 3D view on whatever page that is, but at any rate, that view shows the roofs pretty nicely, but you'll never see them from that angle, and the angle that you do see them from, I don't think you'll see the material at all. So that's my only comment about the roofs. I definitely prefer the copper versus the plastic. And otherwise, I think it's a nice looking project. And I think it fits well into the character. I like the way landscaping with a tight site like this to be able to get all that landscaping in there, I think is gonna make a nice addition to Miller. And then I just have one more question, and that is from a lot of the correspondence that went back and forth between you, Carl, and the planning department. Was there ever a resolution to whether that is a bay window or part of the wall?
I'm looking for a definitive, some definition of what they're operating off of.
Well, looks like a bay window to me, so.
Okay, and most of the stuff you see the conversation where we want a answer about what they're using as criteria of why the bay window is not a bay window.
I can speak to that. We've had multiple staff meetings about it. Staff is unanimous in their opinion about bay windows. If a bay window has a floor, it's floor area. It's not a bay window. That's how we're interpreting it, and that's how Brett is interpreting it, and each of the staff members.
So Jeff, this is Tom Fitzsimmons.
Hi, Tom.
That's Jeff Kahn also. So that's the first I've heard that. So if that front bay window, if we raise that up 2 feet, so there's a shelf in that first floor unit, we're good. You call that a bay window then?
I would like to see it first.
But that's the concept with the floor. If it goes down to the floor, it's floor area. If it's up above the floor, it's a bay window.
That's generally the concept.
Okay, thank you.
And-
Thank you very much. Go ahead,
So,
Carl.
yeah, so where is that definition coming from, Jeff?
We discussed where code describes it. I can forward you that material after the meeting. But this is how staff has been interpreting bay windows for a very long time.
So when you say how long a long time, because there are other buildings built in the past 10, 15 years in downtown Ann Arbor with bay windows that are floor area. So they were allowed, but this one's not. Even though you can go online and find thousands of pictures of bay windows that are floor area. And as I pointed out, the very Chicago School of Architecture is predicated on these walkout bay windows. And that 24-inch walkout bay window became such a standard, it's written into all these zoning ordinances and building codes, such as Ann Arbor's. But nowhere do I see a definition on bay windows in Webster or Oxford or the architectural dictionaries I own that say that a bay window cannot have usable floor area. And as the examples I presented, they all show usable floor area. So like I said in my emails, which the board has copies of, if we knew what the target was, then we could shoot at it. But so far, I don't know what the target is.
Well, Carl, we do now.
We do now, yes, right.
So I appreciate those comments, but now we can take it back with the other comments we've received and look at how we can modify this to make it a better project. I'll take a look. We'll take a look, obviously, at the screen wall comments and the standing seam roof comments too, and I'll come back with a better project.
Yep. So I'm already working at. And then the other issue has to be with, is this 3 stories high or is it 4 stories high? And I produced a document using the Uniform Development Code that demonstrates that it's a 3-story facade, and that same reasoning was used to make 309 North Ashley, directly east of this project, also be a 3-story facade. And I'm still waiting to hear if that summary that I gave is correct.
That's not how staff interpret it. staff met earlier today to discuss it. Brett was firm with the street wall being exceeding 3 feet. You could request a variance for that, but that's staff's interpretation.
So could you clearly explain to me why 309, which has more of the lower level parking garage exposed than 212, is compliant and this is not?
No.
That's right.
And Carl, this is a zoning matter and it's not in our purview.
Right.
So I appreciate the conversation, but maybe you could take it offline after the meeting and resolve zoning matters.
All right.
Thanks, Dick. When I reviewed the design for compliance with the design guidelines, I noticed a couple of zoning issues. And as a courtesy, I wanted to point that out as soon as I found them. And so I did forward that information to the architect and the developer as soon as I identified that. And I did speak to staff to confirm my interpretation before that. But Dick, thank you for saying that. They are zoning issues. We can address them prior to the submittal of a site plan.
Could I ask a question back to I understand the street elevation and so forth is got it back a zoning issue. Back to the bay window just for a second. Did I interpret it correctly that each of the 3 floors you'd have to raise the floor above, the bottom of the bay window, whatever you were calling this thing, above the floor area in order for each floor, you'd have to raise that up so it technically wouldn't have 3 floor area projections into the setback? I'm just trying to get a point of clarification because I'm confused about that.
I think they're saying they could create a window, they would have to create a window seat so that it was not necessarily floor area.
That's what I would interpret.
There'd be
that
some
too.
infill in each one, but it could be expressed as a continuous element on the exterior. But on the interior, what I'm hearing is there would need to be a sill at 3 feet or something
So
to,
from the and that's why I'm interpreting and understanding it too. So from the exterior, it would still look the same as it does now in elevation and in section, but in the interior, you'd have a window seat in all 3 levels, and that would solve it. Is that right, Jeff?
From our lens, if a window goes all the way down to the floor and includes floor area, it counts as floor area that is part of the building. This all comes down to the front setback requirement, which is 15 feet.
I get
And
that.
so-
But my point is, if they put a window seat and just brought the glass down to the window seat but still had like a blank there, the exterior would still look the same, but instead of the glass going all the way to the floor level, it would go down to the window seat and you'd have just a panel at each one. Would that solve it?
I'd certainly be willing to look at that.
It sounds like that's technically what you're looking at.
That's
When you
my
say-
assumption, that the elevation can stay the same as long as there's not floor area for someone to walk into.
Just as a point of clarification, is the problem because we are going to exceed some floor area ratio for the site? Or is the problem because we're projecting into the front yard?
Setback. It's a front yard setback issue.
yeah, it's the latter, Jeff.
But just a second, but you're still, with the new design we're talking about, you're still projecting into that. It's just that technically it isn't usable floor area that's projecting into it. The building is still projected. The projection is still the same. It's just that the floor area isn't projecting in. Is that right?
I think you're right, Bill.
Yeah, but
Well,
putting window seats in there changes the sort of the geometry of the glass and all of that. So, I mean, this is one of those things where maybe maybe the spirit of the code is limiting the floor projecting into the front yard setback, but this is one of those things where my old boss, David Osler, will be screaming bloody murder, but I don't want to see this bay design change. So I hope we can figure out a way forward.
There would still be spandrel panels though at the interstitial space, the framing space. There'd be something opaque there, I assume.
It would just be bigger than it
Still
appears
alternate
now.
clear glass and spandrel. And now there'd be bigger spandrel panels.
Well, Carl pointed out that there were other buildings, I don't know which ones, that project out and have that kind of, call it a bay or not, the floor to ceiling glass. But I assume the technicality is there that those projections don't go into a setback area.
Yep, yes, they project out over the street sidewalks.
Oh. Okay.
But most of the examples were from other cities, right?
The examples the few I showed, yes, I collected. I mean, you could spend your lifetime looking at bay windows on the internet.
I think it's safe for you, Jeff Kahn, to take back that we feel the more glass in that bay window, the better. And whether or not it's allowed is a zoning matter. But we'd rather see more glazing as originally intended. Do people agree with me?
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree and recognize that it's a slippery slope as a way to kind of steal more floor plan space for future projects, right? Like as soon as you start to allow this, it gets challenging when the next project comes up and is slightly less like a bay window and slightly more like just a building that gets bigger.
That's
So
a good
I do want
point.
to be cognizant of what that is. And I wonder if it doesn't, and I can be out of line for suggesting, but are we exceeding the other setbacks in a way that we can say that this is an advantage to the facade and it accomplishes these things and we would have variance around that is acceptable in our opinion because of the graciousness of the side yard situation? Just throwing that out there as a consideration.
Lori, I'm not sure if you were asking a question or just offering an observation.
I guess I'm saying I am hesitant to say we like it, so you should allow it when it's not allowable typically, right? I mean, I agree that it's preferred from a design standpoint to have that all the way down to the floor. I guess I just wonder what the mechanism might be to appropriately kind of balance the intent of the requirements with some of the other ways the site has been used and balanced relative to the other setbacks.
And I think you're suggesting that maybe the east side setback is greater than required. Is that what you're asking?
That without knowing the answer.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer either. Is that the case, Carl?
Well, so we're developing a site under just the regular D2 zoning ordinance allows 200% build out, and we're doing 160% build out. So we're under there. We could build all the way to the lot lines, but you need some space for windows and whatnot. So we could be 5 foot off. We're building a building. You know, it could be, I think 60 feet is the maximum height. We're doing because as I note in my narrative, as we're going down the hill, we're transitioning from the larger urban buildings at Main Street towards the residential neighborhood, and we're adding this building that's sort of starting that step down process, and hopefully other people will take off from that, and the next buildings west will be lower than that. I mean, again, I've had a very difficult time as I immediately answer staff's questions within 24 or 48 hours and then waiting for their answers back of why my own house has a bay window that projects over the front setback here in the city of Ann Arbor. And I'm just, and then as I drove around town, see other examples, I go, well, how did they do that? 309 Ashley has balconies that project 5 feet out into the front setback, but there's nothing in the zoning ordinance about allowing those or not. And so the Uniform Development Code specifically says, it says bay windows, cornices, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't say anything about balconies, and it says 24 inches. But right next door, there's 60-inch projections. So one project gets it and the other doesn't. And they're right next door to each other. So it's just.
And I think you're getting back into the conversation.
Yeah. I understand, yeah.
Yeah, but we did bring it up, and so I think your takeaway is, if allowed by ZBA or by the city, other bodies than this one, we like the way it's been designed in terms of appearance, but we can't tell you if it's allowed or not. It's not our purview.
But I could carry your like to a zoning board of appeals meeting and say that the DRB liked it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've got a comment about something else.
Good.
The other option would be to move the front wall back 2 feet. And I realize that'll take something out of every garage, but then you'd have your bay window on the front setback. But my comment was about the plaza elevation and the lack of windows at the first floor.
Which elevation, Gary?
The plaza elevation, which is the east elevation. I realize that with the elevators and so forth, it makes it really complicated to have windows into the first floor of the units. It would be nice to at least have some side lights or something on the doors that are opening onto the plaza. Also, it would give you a reason to beef up your front door canopies potentially, so they would be a little larger scale, which I think would help as well. But I think the plaza would be enriched if you had the ability to kind of communicate visually with the units if possible. And then I also wanted to ask how the mezzanine works. I can see your section, but I don't really understand how the mezzanine will work. And will the mezzanine be accessible to the roof?
Going backwards, yes, it'll be accessible to the roof. And if you look at the east elevation, the top of the third floor stair tower, that if you go into the stair tower straight in and then past the stair going down and then go to the next, there's a flight of stairs that goes straight up into the mezzanine. And so on the east elevation, you're seeing this shed roof. That's the top of those stairs, flanking the clerestory windows that you're looking at. And that leads right up to that mezzanine.
Okay. All right.
John, do you have anything to add?
Well, I enjoyed the comments. I love the building, and I agree that the front facade is great. That I think it's a good addition to Ann Arbor. I leave it to staff to determine whether it's allowable or not, but I would hope they would find a way to make that happen. Again, I want to piggyback on Jeff. I like the use of copper if it's all possible, and with Lori in terms of screening, that if we can allow it to not be so much a barrier to the sidewalk, the pedestrian experience, and it's living downtown. I mean, that's what happens. You have people walking by. So those are the only comments. I think it's a great building, and I hope you can work out the details with staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have just one comment about the East Plaza, which I really think is a great approach to the building to the east. To have that little relief between the two buildings really works. I think it'll probably only get on a sunny day 2 or 3 hours of daylight. And so you might want to look at some hardscape materials that will not be dependent upon growth, and some hardy plant materials that will survive. But I think that's a real opportunity to develop a really nice little space similar to that interior courtyard at Carytown that everyone loves so much. It's just a real special little spot. So I'm glad you did that, and good luck with the landscaping. I'm sure there's a way to solve it.
If I may add to that, I think as you move further into the detail, it would be wonderful if that space had some interesting lighting so that at night it really felt like an amenity on the street as well. So I'm sure in that sort of enclosure you can factor that in, but it would be nice to incorporate that. So it's a winter long, summer long, evening long asset to the street.
Yeah, John.
I'm sorry, one more. I'm the Art Commission representative, so I have the obligation of trying to encourage public art. Have you considered using public art in your project in any way, Carl?
I always do, and that's a conversation that Tom and I have to go through. But it's on my hit list, but not, we're kind of early in the game. I guess we'll let the cat out of the bag, John.
Well, the Public Art Commission stands ready to help in any way that we can.
Okay, all right. I want to thank everybody. I think we're done with the comments. All your input is very important to me, and we certainly will build off it. I enjoy participating in things like this, so thank you very much, and I hope you'll see your input expressed on the outside of this building as it continues forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much for the comments, as always.
Thanks, Tom.
You bet.
I don't see anything on the agenda, Kristen or Jeff, under unfinished business or communications. Has anything come in recently? Kristen mentioned that there will be a meeting next month.
Yes.
What is the project?
Let me see what that
The project is 330 Detroit Street, which is just north of the Detroit filling station. It's a triangular shaped building. I think Mr. Fitzsimmons is associated with that project as well. And I believe that they may have uploaded their design materials as recently as today. So Kristen and I will be getting involved with that project, and hopefully you'll be able to have a look at that one sometime in November.
Good, thank you. I have to ask for public comment one more time, so if you'll bear with me. If anyone would like to speak to the project that we just reviewed, please call 877-852-5247 or 888-788-0099 and enter the following meeting ID 974-6174-9412. And we'll just give a minute for people to call in if they're there.
There are no callers.
Okay, all right. Well, I think we are done, and it is going to be great to say we'll see you all next week or next month.
Next month.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.